This is the Bama Podcast with Marty Solomon. I'm his co-host, Brent Billings. Today we examine the often avoided book of Lamentations and the shocking space it creates for the dark things that need to be grieved.
Yeah, book of Lamentations.
Sounds very fun.
I know. It is definitely not the book you look forward to. Just excited to get to the book of Lamentations. Not a whole lot of sermons being preached on Lamentations. The book boy, it's dark. It's foreboding. We don't dig into it much, but it is. What kind of a prophet, Brent? Where are we at?
We're in the Babylonian prophets.
Babylonian prophets, okay. Tradition says that Jeremiah wrote Lamentations. Weeping prophet would make sense. I'm not sure there's much credence to the tradition, but tradition credits him with authorship. I don't think academia does, but
Reading Lamentations will make you weep.
that is true. All right, let's just quickly review prophets. Where we've been. Pre-Assyrian prophets. What do we got?
We've got Amos and Hosea.
Amos and Hosea. What were their images? Amos was
Plumb line and ripe fruit, and Hosea married the prostitute.
all right. And what do we have? Judah prophets for pre-Assyria.
We had Micah and First Isaiah with the images of judge and vineyard,
Okay.
respectively.
After pre-Assyrian, we had Assyrian. We had 4 prophets, 2 to Isaiah, or 2 to Israel.
To Isaiah, that'd be interesting.
I know, right?
Prophet to the prophet. Assistant to the regional manager.
That's right.
We had Jonah with the picture of potential and Nahum with the picture of Dean.
Dean, retributive justice, the pronouncement of incoming judgment. Okay, and then we had 2 prophets to Judah at the same time.
We had Zephaniah,
Yes, Zephaniah.
and that was image of teshuvah, return, repent.
Okay.
And then second Isaiah with the image of woe.
Yeah, okay. I like that. And
Not
then,
like woe, horsey, but
right.
woe as in
Woe.
woe upon you.
Woe to you. That's right. And that led us into the Babylonian prophets. We've talked about one. That was the very large, big prophet of,
Jeremiah,
what was his image?
weeping,
There you go. All
as
right.
we've referenced already.
That's right. So here we are, all caught up. Lamentations. Let's just dive right in. Let's make this we had a long one last time. Let's make this a short one. Famous last words.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
Hashtag, yeah, right. Hashtag Bama Podcast. Yeah, we're just going to dive right in here. First of all, before I even dive in, let me just recommend, I almost redid this whole lesson. And I thought, I'm really just going to be regurgitating and passing stuff off as my own that borders on almost semi-plagiarism. So I'm just going to recommend. Rob Bell did a part of his Robcast. This probably had to have been at least probably a year and a half ago, maybe now. We said episodes 92 through 96. Rob did a series on learning to lament. And it was really about the book of Lamentations. And it was a phenomenal study through the book of Lamentations. I really recommend listening to it. Like my podcast, great place to start. But if you really want to do some more work, and I recommend doing some more work, I would say listen to those podcasts. And I think you're going to link those episodes in our show notes so that you can find those. And just really, really good stuff. And one of the things that he talked about right off the bat was just how Lamentations works in its literature. And you have these 2 different voices. These 2 voices that are kind of in conversation, kind of similar to Song of Songs, where you had the beloved and the groom, and they went back and forth to each other. Well, this one isn't nearly as pretty in its poetry. It's very dark, but you have 2 voices. One is the voice of the narrator, and one is the voice of the woman who represents Judah and the people of God, the bride, maybe, as you think of Jeremiah. Talk about the people as a bride. So you have this bride and you have the narrator. And so the narrator opens and starts, and I'll let Rob in that podcast talk more about that. But we're going to start in Lamentations 1 with the opening verses here, and this is the narrator's voice. You have an observer who's just kind of looking out over. Jerusalem has been destroyed. God's people are in ruins. And the narrator speaks. Lamentations says, "How deserted lies the city, once so full of people. How like a widow is she, who once was great among the nations. She, who was queen among the provinces, has now become a slave. Bitterly she weeps at night. Tears are upon her cheeks. Among all her lovers there is none to comfort her. All of her friends have betrayed her. They have become her enemies. After affliction and harsh labor, Judah has gone into exile. She dwells among the nations. She finds no resting place. All who pursue her have overtaken her in the midst of her distress. And so here's the voice of this narrator who looks out and just kind of opens Lamentations with a very bleak, grim observation of what is happening. But then, a few verses later, towards the end of verse 9, all of a sudden the voice changes. We're no longer listening to the narrator, but we're listening to the voice of the woman. And she says this, she says, "Look, O Lord," you can hear the voice change. "Look, O Lord, on my affliction, for the enemy has triumphed. The enemy laid hands on all her treasures." And then she said, and we're back to the narrator's voice again. At the end of verse 11, she says, "Look, O Lord, and consider, for I am despised." And Rob will go on to talk about that. Her voice is really prevalent as you get into chapter 2. All of a sudden, she gets to have a larger monologue. I'm going to jump ahead to chapter 2. I'm going to look at, let's see here. How about verse 20? This is some deep, dark stuff here. "Look, O Lord, and consider, whom have you ever treated like this? Should women eat their offspring, the children they have cared for? Should priest and prophet be killed in the sanctuary of the Lord? Young and old lie together in the dust of the streets. My young men and maidens have fallen by the sword. You have slain them in the day of your anger. You have slaughtered them without pity. As you summoned to a feast day, so you summoned against me terrors on every side. In the day of the Lord's anger, no one escaped or survived. Those I cared for and reared, my enemy has destroyed." So her voice comes in and she says, is this right? Is this, and she references what I believe. Do you remember any of those words showing up anywhere, Brent? Talking about, I mean, there's some dark, screwed up stuff here, like people eating their children. Has that shown up before? Or is this the first time we've seen it?
Has that shown up before? In Israel?
Or in just the text?
Well, in the text, perhaps.
Our assumption is going to be yes if Marty's asking the question.
Sure.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 had these, if you remember, as we walked through Deuteronomy, and there was that passage that was like, if you do what's right, good things will happen to you. But if you do what's wrong, here are these curses. And in fact, some weeks ago on the Facebook page, we posted a podcast where Peter Enns kind of went through all of this stuff in his perspective. But there's some pretty dark stuff in Deuteronomy 28. So when you see this in Lamentations, it's really a throwback, a poetic throwback to what God said in Deuteronomy. And the author of Lamentations is saying all the stuff that you said would come true, it's now coming true. All the stuff that you warned us about, we didn't heed the warning, and now we're experiencing it. And at this point in the book, she's crying out and saying, is this right? Like, honestly, you're going to sit by and let this kind of stuff happen? And before we even move on, I want to just make a point about the lament. I have just a few notes here that I'll read. Like I said, not too many sermons being prepared to exegete these passages from Lamentations, and yet I find it interesting to know that the Bible makes space for this kind of emotion. As we've stated before, I think we think back to we've had conversations about creating space for grief. We've had conversations about the Psalms and imprecatory Psalms. We've talked about this a little bit before. The Bible doesn't seem to waste time creating spaces for all people to connect with the presence of God. This is not a book, referencing the Bible, or even Lamentations specifically, that refuses to speak to those who mourn. The Bible is not a book that demands you to get your act together and put a smile on your face first. There is space for the lament. And for those that have never heard that before and need to hear it again, I'll say it yet one more time. There is space for the lament. It's okay. Part of the reason that the Bible has a book of Lamentations, part of the reason we do read imprecatory Psalms, part of the reason that we do have some of these passages is because the Bible knows that we have to be able to call out and recognize the darkness that is inside of us. Because if we don't process it in appropriate ways, if there's not something to do with the grief, if there's not something to do with the lament, if you can go nowhere with it, it's going to find an outlet eventually. Now, there are healthy responses to the lament. There are healthy things to do with your anger and your rage and your grief. And there are healthy ways and there are unhealthy ways. But there are healthy ways. And we've said it before in our podcast. We don't do a good job creating healthy spaces for this lament. But this is one of the reasons why I appreciate art so much. And why I really have a hard time drawing these hard lines between you can't engage this kind of art, you can't engage this kind of art, you can only listen to Christian music, you can't watch these kind of movies, you can't, because art has a way. Now, obviously there are appropriate things to engage at different levels of age development, and I'm not arguing for just a anarchy when it comes to our consumption of the media. But art has a way of giving us expression to get rid of. It's part of the reason why Christian music for some of us is such a joy to listen to, but just you have these moments where you're like, I cannot listen to one more praise song. Like if I hear one more, and Christian music doesn't sell, quite literally, if they make darker, more honest music. And so what you're forced to do is find these other outlets of expression. This is why some of us are drawn, I don't want to just start throwing labels around Christian and secular, but some of us are drawn to a more secular perspective, and you pop in that CD and there's something inside of you, and you wrestle with all this guilt and shame as that favorite album of yours, you pop it in and your whole soul just kind of breathes a sigh of relief, like, oh, yes. Because that expression of the frustration and the anger and the rage. Now, obviously, again, there's healthy ways to do that and unhealthy ways to do that. But it's really good to pause here in Lamentations and go, this is another place where the people of God are finding a space to just rage, and they're raging at the appropriate place. They're not raging irreverently. They're not raging in a way that disrespects and dishonors Adonai, but they are raging at Adonai, letting him have the emotion because he can deal with it. He can accept it.
Now, it's kind of an Ecclesiastes thing. There's a time for this.
Yes.
You're not going to live here forever, but there's an appropriate time and place for these emotions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. There's a time and a place for everything. A season for all things. So a little bit more academically. We'll close the book with a little bit more academic observations. A few things going on in Lamentations. First of all, Lamentations is what's called an alphabetic acrostic. Lamentations is an alphabetic acrostic. What that means is that every line, you don't see this in the English because it's not written in the English, so it doesn't work with the English alphabet. But in the Hebrew, and you can jump on Blue Letter Bible and check this yourself, every line of the poem, in my Bible, it looks like every stanza. It's really a line, a stanza in the Hebrew. Every stanza, verse 1, starts with, we would say the letter A. In Hebrew, it's Aleph. And 2 would be letter B, but we would say Beit. And then 3 is Gimel. And 4 starts with Dalet. And it goes through the Hebrew alphabet. And there are 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. And so you'll notice how many verses are there in chapter 1, Brent?
22.
There's 22. There's a verse for every. It's an alphabetic acrostic. So every line starts with the letter of the alphabet. A, B, C, D, or in their case, Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet. And every line starts with that. Now, if you notice in chapter 3, there are 66 verses because there are 3 of each. Aleph, 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 Beit, 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 Gimel, 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 Dalet, Dalet, Dalet. And then it goes back in chapter 4 and chapter 5 to 22 verses because it's Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet. But it's an alphabetic acrostic. But if we were paying close attention to those numbers are fun, aren't they, Brent?
I do enjoy them generally.
22, 22, 66, 22, 22. Anything strike you about that?
Seems mirrored.
Seems mirrored. Yeah. You got like an AABAA thing going on here. 22, 22, 66, 22, 22. Not only that, but 66 happens to be 3 times 22. I mean, this is really designed. It's not trying to hide this very well at all. Lamentations is absolutely direct. Like if you're reading this at all, you immediately pick up on the nature of this chiasm. So we often will say, when we go through our review, Lamentations, we like to call it ACA. AC, alphabetic, chiastic, acrostic. And we like ACA because it's chiastic in and of itself, right? So Lamentations is an alphabetic, chiastic, acrostic, which the moment we identify it as such, we need to look for what, Brent?
The center.
The center. Now, we've pulled up the center. What are you going to be reading for us?
Let's see, starting in chapter 3, verse 19.
All right. Now, before you start, this whole time going through Lamentations, it's been dark. There's no light in Lamentations for the first 2 chapters. In the very first part of chapter 3, it's all, this is how bad it is. This is how bad it is. This is how bad it is. And then a shift starts to happen as we begin to work towards the center. And you're picking up in, you said 19?
19.
All right.
I remember my affliction and my wandering, the bitterness and the gall. I well remember them, and my soul is downcast with me. Yet this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope.
Okay, so all of a sudden there's a shift happening. Like I remember all this stuff, but then I remember something else, and I have, hope is a weird thing to have in the middle of this book. Go ahead.
Because of the Lord's great love we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. I say to myself, the Lord is my portion, therefore I will wait for him. The Lord is good to those whose hope is in him, to the one who seeks him. It is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. It is good for a man to bear the yoke while he is young.
Okay, so in the midst of all this lament, the tone is changing quite a bit. Like it's good for a man to sit here in this space. And you're like, what? For 2 chapters, I've been reading about how horrible this is, but now all of a sudden, as we get closer to the middle, we're getting reflective. Like, no, maybe we should just stop and realize it's good to wait on the salvation of the Lord. What's going on here? Keep going.
Let him sit alone in silence, for the Lord has laid it on him. Let him bury his face in the dust. There may yet be hope. Let him offer his cheek to one who would strike him, and let him be filled with disgrace.
Okay, so now the author says, let him sit alone in silence. Let him bury his face in the dust. Let's just stop for a moment, the author says, and let's just sit in this space as we wait for the salvation of the Lord. Let us consider something. And now we come to the middle of the book of Lamentations. Keep going.
For no one is cast off by the Lord forever. Though he brings grief, he will show compassion. So great is his unfailing love. For he does not willingly bring affliction or grief to anyone. To crush underfoot all prisoners in the land, to deny people their rights before the Most High, to deprive them of justice. Would not the Lord see such things?
Okay, so now the author said, that was the center of the whole book. The center of this chiasm is, listen, God doesn't cast people off forever. He doesn't just do this because he willingly enjoys it. He does it because people are being crushed underfoot. So there's this theme of injustice again. He does this because he rises up against injustice. And so he's going to rise up against this injustice, would be the implication. Like the implication here is we're lamenting, we're creating all this space for our grief, we're lamenting, but let's stop and think about it because we know who God is and we know that we're going to be rescued eventually because we always have hope. Okay, go on, keep going.
Who can speak and have it happen if the Lord has not decreed it? Is it not from the mouth of the Most High that both calamities and good things come? Why should the living complain when punished for their sins? Let us examine our ways and test them, and let us return to the Lord.
Okay, so now the author says, why should any living man complain when punished for his sins? So all of a sudden now, it's not just about our rescue, but the author is saying, so the author kind of shifted and said, let's sit here and reflect. Let's think about who God is and take hope. And now on the backside of hope, let's start thinking about our own sins and how we've actually been to blame for this. Because Let us examine our own ways and test them, and let us return to the Lord. A little shuva there. Okay, go ahead and keep going.
Let us lift up our hearts and our hands to God in heaven and say, we have sinned and rebelled, and you have not forgiven. You have covered yourself with anger and pursued us. You have slain without pity. You have covered yourself with a cloud so that no prayer can get through. You have made us scum and refuse among the nations.
All right, and so now all of a sudden the book goes back down on the backside of the chiasm, and it goes back into darkness. But right in the middle is this treasure of how to deal. Like, first of all, you can just read the book of Lamentations and appreciate the fact that it gives you space for your lament and your grief and your darkness, and it gives space to that. But then if you keep reading it, if you're to keep reading it and keep reading it, and keep reading. Eventually, this book is going to start to do a work in you, and all of a sudden, you recognize the chiasm. Now, all of a sudden, this same book that was giving you space for your grief, this same book is speaking back to you about moving on from your grief, turning your grief into something redemptive and productive. And so this book starts to do a work, and you come out of this book back into your grief, but with a newfound perspective about why your grief is can't maybe here in the first place. I'm not suggesting that everybody's grief is the result of their sin. It's not the point of my podcast at all. But it is the point of the author of Lamentations as he or she looks at all the destruction. And in this particular instance, in this piece of historical context, the author is saying, I think there's something here we need to think about. And the good news is that God doesn't cast us off forever. The good news is that his rescue and redemption is coming. The good news is that there's always hope in the midst of the lament. And in Lamentations, quite literally, there's hope right in the middle of the lament. And this is our little discussion on Lamentations.
Only 22 minutes. I got to hand it to you, Marty. That was pretty good.
Yeah, we got it.
Even though this is a little book, there's still a big discussion to have here. So we hope you find a discussion group. You can find those on our website. Marty, I think you wanted to say something about discussion groups. You've got some plans for discussion groups.
Yeah, well, first of all, we're going to, in the months to come, I'm not going to make any guarantees about the near future. In the months to come, we're going to make sure that every year or so we're updating our online map and our online database. I'm sure there are some groups out there that started as launch groups that are now full-blown groups. I'm sure that there are groups that have either moved on or are no longer meeting. We need to just update our list to make it accurate. I'm sure that there are new groups that haven't even contacted me yet. If you're out there and you're meeting, we'd love to throw you on the map. I mean, like I said, weeks ago, I was traveling around. I was in Peoria, Illinois, and I met who knows how many of you that listen. And a lot of you weren't on the map. I'd love to get you on the map so that people know that it's out there, because there could be other people listening, and would love to talk to people, especially about lament. Talk about creating space. What if somebody is working through lament and has nobody to work through lament with? There's nobody to give witness to that voice. So it's important. So let me know if you're out there listening to this, you've never contacted me, you're not on our map, or maybe you contacted me and I misplaced your email. Heaven forbid. But we'll make sure we get you on there. We'd love to have you on our database. But the other thing is all of you that meet around the country, I'm hoping, you were talking about plans, Brent, I'm hoping in the future, in the year to come, next school year, to kind of change some of the ways that I travel and to come meet some of you and some of these groups that meet around the country. We're always looking for really staff. One of the things we've really been pushing on this year at Impact Campus Ministries is we're looking for more college ministers on more college campuses. And some of you that study Bema do it in the context of a campus or a college demographic. Some of you don't. But I want to use the opportunity for those of you that listen. Man, you take this stuff and you give it to a Gen Zer, a millennial, and you turn them loose with the ability to ask questions and wrestle with the text. And this is a beautiful, amazing thing, the work that I get to do in campus ministry every day. And we need more people like me serving on more college campuses so that more people can be exposed to the gospel in the right kind of way. And so I'd love if there's anybody out there. One of our last hires at Impact was Bema Missoula was meeting, and I went and visited them. Didn't even know they existed. Somebody told me. I went and visited. talked about how we're looking for more campus ministers, and one of our newest hires, Mr. Carl Moritz, headed to the University of Montana, came out of that discussion. And I didn't want to miss the profound nature of that conversation. I figured, I bet there are more Carls out there in our listener base around the country. So I want to come meet people, and I want to come say hi, and I want to talk to you guys, and obviously about all the Bema stuff, and I want to talk about the text, of course. And I'd love to talk about if there's anybody out there who would love to work with me and help me do what we do. So there you go, Brent.
Sounds great. So you can find all the details you need for that at BemaDiscipleship.com. There's ways to get a hold of us. Of course, we've got the Facebook page. We've got Twitter. You can find Marty at Marty Solomon. I'm at EIBCB. Get a hold of us one way or the other. Let us know what you're wrestling with. We want to, ask questions together and dig deeper into the text. So thanks for joining us on the Bema Podcast, and we'll talk to you again soon.